Broadcasting live from the Main Street Cinema, it's Contemporary Inc. with your host, Bill Blair, your Lorcana podcast. I don't know if you've ever had the pleasure to stop in at the first aid station here in the park. It's located over by the corn dog hut at the end of Main Street, but they provide over-the-counter remedies, and they have a nurse on staff. If you need sunscreen or an aspirin, they can help you out. And apparently they also have COVID-19 vaccines, which I got my stick in the arm on Friday, and I've felt like total garbage ever since. I've been holed up in the cinema for the last couple of days because it's air-conditioned and relatively sedate. No one's going to hassle you if you sit in the corner and just eat your popcorn. And I've been thinking about some misconceptions that I've had about Lorcana that I think derive from my background with Magic the Gathering. I'm actually reminded of playing a board game at a friend's house a few years ago. It was called Small World, and from a distance, it looks like a weird variant of Risk. You bring units onto a map and have a little combat, but then those units almost immediately die. The accelerated passage of time grinding their civilization into dust, only for the next turn to bring a new civilization with new powers and abilities. Well, my friend was trying to teach me how to play, and I kept interpreting everything through the lens of Risk, a game that I had played many times, but not for a while. And the strategy that I kept trying to employ with Small World would not work. I was dismayed every couple of turns as my characters were ground down by the passage of time, giving only a slight bonus to the next generation. I found the game frustrating, whereas my buddy had already bought all of the expansions. And I feel a similar dismay every time one of my Lorcana characters is banished from the board. When I conjure Aurora into play, I want her to be there for the rest of the game. I like her. I want her to do good things. But wouldn't you know it? Within a turn or two, she's in the discard pile, and there's absolutely nothing I can do about it. In my mind, I want to get these characters into the field and questing as much as possible, hoping for some kind of war of attrition between me and the opponent. What I get is this constant churning of new characters being brought into play, the nature of the deck forcing me to bring characters into the fray early and before I'm ready. For example, I've had this magical healing flower sitting there since my first turn. Banishing it, healing 3 damage from one of my characters. But I can't use it because the characters that need 3 healing end up dying and getting sent away before I can actually use it. I was on Reddit the other day and someone was complaining that Coconut Basket was too overpowered, unfair. And I can see if you were playing a game with someone and that just happened to happen. But my experience with Coconut Basket is rarely does that 2 health bonus even come into play. Early on, so many of your characters might have 2 or 4 defense, making them easy targets for Fire the Cannons, and a quick challenge from some cheap character you brought out. You'll have to excuse me, I'm still feeling a little under the weather, even though I've had several bowls of Walt's favorite chili. I don't know how much more I've got in me, but I think it would be unfair if we didn't check in on this Rise of the Floodborn D100 collector's set, which I'm seeing online as going for $549.99. This thing is redonkulous. It includes a couple of booster packs, but you're not buying it for that. What you're really investing in is these 6 absolutely beautiful cards with brand new art and that full frame art style that says, I have the money to buy this stuff. The packaging is kind of on par with the rest of the stuff from this series. But what kind of stands out is the artist's name scrawled across the actual art itself instead of just a side note at the bottom of the card. I think this really shows Disney's dedication to the artists that are putting this stuff together for them. You'd think a big company like this would just leave it all to AI, but they're really investing in high quality artists, and the presentation is absolutely perfect. I think these cards are going to end up graded on eBay selling for, well, more than the $550 asking price. In an interesting note, let's just think about the fact that for your relatively large investment of $550, what you're getting aren't new cards necessarily. No one's going to play with these. No one's going to show up at a tournament with, this beautiful Maui with the rainbow ombre effect in the background going on. These are meant to be slabbed in PSA cases. So why not introduce a new card with some new gameplay mechanic or some unique special ability that's only available on this card? Because if you think about it, this is like the 5th version of this Elsa card that we've seen. If you wanted to complete the rainbow, as it were, you're looking to spend some serious coin. Or maybe it's only fair to the dedicated players out there that new cards and abilities are available to everybody through the standard expansions and not just to a select few who have the coin to spend on bespoke cards. That being said, I had a really interesting game of Pixelborn while I was recuperating. This game seemed to take forever. I don't know if this was a control deck, but it sure had the pacing of one, where I kept feeling like I was getting drawn out into this long gameplay experience. I ended up scoring a few points early on. This was me playing the Chad Kaplan deck, by the way. And when the points came in at 5-0 with me on top, I thought I had this thing wrapped up neat as a pin. Little did I know, every time I got more than 2 characters out, they were all going to be washed from the game board. And again, I don't know why this guy kept inking stuff. He ended up having like 16 inks, this compulsive, constant throwing things into the ink pile. Those cards could easily have been played. I don't know why anyone needs ink into the mid-double digit. I seem to do okay playing with the misses, but every time I go online, I get trounced royally. And it kind of makes me wonder, am I just bad at this? The game is so deceptively simple, and even when playing with decks made by other people, quote-unquote professionals, I feel like the decision-making process pretty much takes care of itself. I don't feel like there's a lot of room in the driver's seat for the player during a game of Lorcana. I would love for some of you out there in podcasting land to prove me completely wrong. Say, Bill, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm just hoping that with this new Floodborne expansion comes more opportunity for decision-making processes beyond the most immediate need. And maybe I can expand on that a little bit more when every muscle in the right side of my body doesn't hurt. I don't know how I'm going to make good on this, but I promise that next week it's going to be great. This 10-minute me griping session is it's a one-time thing. Also, did you know that there are metrics for these podcasting things? Apparently 30% of the listenership, that's you guys, come in through Spotify. 30% comes in through Apple Podcasts. And then there's another 30% that's broken down into a bunch of smaller distribution platforms that I didn't even know existed. I've got a couple of people that like to tune in on YouTube, which is cool. It's available out there and, free with, I don't think there's any ads. Maybe there's ads. I don't know. I'm not seeing any money from this. I guess the point is I really appreciate you guys. 5 people here, 10 people there. It really makes a difference. In fact, if it hadn't been for you guys tuning in every week, I probably wouldn't even have done one today. Instead, making a slow circuit around the park, hitting up all the churro and popcorn stands. But before I start griping again, I guess we should just get into it. Ashes to ashes, funk to funky. We know Mr. Toad's a junkie.